So parry is a really strong mechanic in 2x KO. For 1 bar, which you start each round with, you beat all strikes except lows with mid parry, and all lows with low parry in just 1 frame. It's instant. Reacting and parrying is going to be one of the biggest ways this game's meta is pushed, and there are a few different properties on a successful parry, so let's go over them. If you parry a strike straight up, your opponent gets stunned and is punishable. The damage is scaled if it's a mid parry, but the hit stun is not, making this still very rewarding because you can do your longest combo. On a strike assist or a tagged out attack, the parry will still freeze the game and basically burst your opponent's point character unless they're like 70% of the screen or so away from you. Or tagged out version. Once Yasuo tags out there, the assist then gets parried because the assist is now the point, and then the stab is now technically the assist. On a projectile, the parry will cancel all block stun of the projectile, and you become actionable way earlier, which would look like this. As opposed to... Now that we've gone over those, let's go over moves you should try to parry. Starting with the most important and most vague one, let's talk about parrying assists. In this example, I'm including both assists and tagged out attacks, which we went over earlier, especially common after burst or push block. So let's say Echo is trying to get in safely by dashing forward and calling Yasuo like this. If I just parry, then here Yasuo is knocked away, but Echo isn't because he's a little too far. But if I get a little closer, like this close, there Echo is knocked away, see? This is still valuable on projectiles and can sometimes be even more valuable since your opponent can't react to the fact that you're parrying. The biggest point here is that if the parry freeze goes off, all minigames related to them tagging or not tagging, calling a potential 2x assist, or anything you can think of are now off the table. A lot of the time, these moves or assists can be on the slower side as well, so this can come up both in neutral and when you're on defense, so make sure to keep your opponents honest with this. Projectiles are some of the easiest ways to secure frame advantage in any fighting game, and it goes for 2x KO as well. If multiple projectile hits are coming at you, you just have to parry them multiple times, which can definitely be a little bit harder. So let's just keep this as single hit projectiles for now. The best example is probably Jinx's missile, where landing a parry can seriously throw off your opponent and allow you to take your turn before they can even see the fact that you parried. Other examples include Echo's Timewinder, Darius' Fireball, and Ahri's air projectiles. Keeping it pretty broad, let's move on to the overheads. These are moves on Darius, Echo, Illaoi, Jinx, and Vi that are low to mid 20s in terms of startup frames, and varying levels of disadvantaged on block. They're usually comboed off of with assists or supers. And usually if your opponent is calling an assist here, they'll be able to continue their offense afterwards on block, like that. See, I'm plus 28. Or, well, it's not capital, so it would be something more like that. There you go, right? Since parry is a frame 1 action, if you react to these, you might as well try to stand up and parry them, since you'll get a full punish instead of blocking it and potentially having to deal with the assist or tag offense after the fact. These are definitely some of the harder parries in the game, and I'm sure good players years from now at tournaments will still obviously not be able to get it 100% of the time, but they're super rewarding, can definitely make your opponent think twice about, going for overheads for free. Next up, let's talk slow plus moves. The most obvious one is when a character uses a charged heavy solo, since I'm plus 5 there, but it's dash cancelable, so I'm actually plus like 30 trillion. But there are some other examples, like Echo's charged S2. This is -1, but then I can cancel and teleport and then plus here, right? There's also a minigame where you can bait your parry by doing that, but as a baseline, this move is good on block, so people will want to use it. And Ahri's down S2, which you could technically argue belongs in the overhead section, but it's both a lot slower and a lot better on block, so I'm going to put it in the plus move section. Parrying these can turn your opponent getting a little greedy on offense into your advantage and can completely swing a game. Still not on character-specific stuff, let's talk crossups. These are most commonly done with an assist or a projectile hitting as the crossup, most commonly seen with stuff like Vi's Sway, but they can also be with moves with crossup hitboxes like Echo's and Ahri's Jump 2H, like that, or special moves like Yasuo's Rapid Slash. Since parry doesn't care about whether you're holding left or right, you can call out your opponent's crossups this way, which can make a huge difference, as many of these are very advantageous on block, similar to the overhead section. Worth mentioning, a lot of these will not be on reaction inherently, because the crossups are supposed to be mix-ups, right? So if Echo's doing, like, that to cross you up, you might not always be able to see it, right? But it's like, oh, okay, I think Echo's going for a cross-up, and then I'll parry this. The last general parry we're going to go over is a little bit of a weirder one, which is on super flashes. When a super is inputted in this game, the game freezes, right? However, the super flash does not do what we call eating your input. See how I press jab during this flash, and then my jab comes out? Which means there can be some pretty frustrating moments, which I have also gotten frustrated over, where your move will still come out after the parry. However, in this game, parry is actually the highest priority action, which means if I press jab here, and then press parry, So again, look at my inputs. Basically, because time is frozen during the super flash, it will count the jab and the parry as happening at the same time, and the game is smart and it knows you want your parry, so it will just prioritize the parry happening instead of your jab or whatever else you inputted. If you hard baited a reversal and didn't press anything, then you probably shouldn't parry because it'll scale your combo by quite a bit. So your combo will not be as hard of a punish, as opposed to the parry, where doing the same combo will probably be a little bit more scaled. But a lot of the time, we will just press something during a super flash before we react to it because it's so long. So this is just a good habit to have to make sure you don't accidentally get clipped by it. The next couple examples are probably going to be a little faster because they're character specific. First off, let's talk about hooks. Darius and Blitzcrank both have moves that League players will just call hook, where they drag you in, lock you out of your defensive options, and then are threatening a pretty advantageous guessing game for them. However, both of these moves are pretty slow, so if you parry them, you'll end up getting a full punish. Sometimes, if you parry Blitz's hook full screen, you will always get the biggest punish. It's worth mentioning that Blitz actually can bait your parry by charging a steam like this, but usually if you're full screen, because the hook has travel time, it's actually easier to react to parry it. Darius standing S2 is a very strong mid-range attack with a follow-up to stop people from acting after, which also applies his unique status effect, Bleed. I don't know if it's Wound or Bleed. I think everyone just calls it Bleed because this is Bleed. But yeah, whatever it is, it applies it, which makes your character take a bunch of chip damage on block. The follow-up, however, is just barely reactable with parry, and the situation can go from taking a combo's worth of chip damage on block to you getting a punish. Just don't forget that if your opponent knows that you're looking for this, they'll just do the first S2 and then run at you and take their free advantage. Illaoi's forward S1 is an even stronger neutral tool since it will break projectiles, and has a follow-up, which is punishable, but has a third follow-up. However, the third one is parryable, similar to Darius. So if you see Illaoi players do like 2 of them and then call their assist, that's why. Ahri's S2 is a pretty far-range fireball, not full screen, worth mentioning, but still pretty far. And it can also be cancelled by pressing S1 again for what would be a pretty risk-free frame trap, but it also can be reacted to with parry. You won't always be able to get a punish on this, but in general, like, it's your turn, not Ahri's. So usually like parry and then run in it and like 5M her or something. So something like this. Illaoi's tentacles are her main mechanic, and they're all hittable. So if you hit the tentacle, it goes away like this. Right? To prevent players from hitting them, she has Charge Down S2, which is a full screen tracking move. Pretty obviously will stop me from running over and punching the tentacle at certain timings, right? Right? If I try to mid parry it, I'll die. And the thing is, because you're doing it from so far, you won't always be able to get a punish on her. However, low parrying it will always clear the screen of all tentacles, which is still pretty important. Yasuo almost always will get a punish on this with his forward S1. But Echo might struggle a little bit more. See, it didn't punish. Finally, the biggest ask on this list is Jinx's laser super. With Double Down, the super allows her to tag into her partner character, usually Echo, Ahri, or Yasuo, and do mix-ups on you basically for free. While parrying this move doesn't necessarily get you out, it definitely makes the mix-up weaker by forcing your opponent to, you know, try to interact with you, and maybe they won't have enough frame advantage to do their whole mix-up or whatever, to the point where it's probably worth representing parry here, even if it's only just the first couple of hits to, you know, scare them off from doing their mix-up, because then they'll actually try and react, be like, oh, okay, my opponent parried, blah, 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 right? Parrying every hit of the super will also build you a massive amount of meter if you need another reason to do it, but a trick that actually helped me learn this is that because it builds you so much meter, in fact, if you parry every hit, it'll build you around 1.75 bars. I would watch my meter and then stop parrying once I see I have that much bar, so I don't parry too many hits, because it's a lot of hits, right? This is by far the hardest thing to do on the list, and is definitely an advanced level technique, but I thought I'd just make it the last one for fun. Don't feel bad if you can't hit this. There are definitely some more, like, advanced, sweaty parries that I intentionally did not mention in this video, but maybe I can make that in a sequel if you guys want to see it or something like that, but I kind of wanted to keep it simple for now. So those are 10 spots where I think it's useful to parry in 2xKO. Hopefully this is helpful for y'all playing early access, and let me know if you want more 2xKO videos and on what topics in the comments, and as usual, thanks for watching.